Hello and welcome. This is the Astrology of the Week Ahead podcast. And this is what we do here. We look at the upcoming week. This episode, we're going to look at the week of June 26th. And we look to see what kind of quality of time we are about to live through. So I believe that astrology is a really helpful tool in as much as it is a mirror that reflects back to us our own personal potential and gifts and problems and issues, and also the quality of time we're about to live through. So it reflects back to us what kind of architecture we are in at the moment. So in this episode, we're going to talk about the week of June 26th. And I'd love for you to think about what it is that's being reflected back to you as you live this week out. Sometimes it's really good to listen to these podcasts at the end of the week after everything's already been done. And you can reflect back and think, oh yeah, that landed in my life this way, or this was how I experienced that. And it's also really good to listen to it at the beginning of the week because then you can work with the astrology as it's happening. It just depends on what works better for you. So use this as a tool. I hope it is clarifying for you. Okay, so I just wanted to say, I think we have free will. I think we have choice. And within that, I think that we're living in a season, right? We're living in a moment. And I use that kind of mirror image, as if you're at a party and you want to make sure your face is fixed and your hair is okay. You go and look in the mirror and you're like, okay, I'm good. Well, I had lipstick on my teeth, so I'm really glad I looked at the mirror. Kind of like that. We're just using it as a tool. This week, the week of June 26th, starts off a little chaotic, and it also ends with a little bit of chaos. So when we know that, we can enter into Monday with a lot of patience and a lot of space for things to go wrong. And if they don't, great. But if things get bumpy and chaotic and loud and disruptive, as well as being a little derailing and confusing on Monday, the 26th of June, then we can be well, yeah, that was the astrology of the day, so here it is. And it might not even be that for you personally. It might be that in terms of what you're experiencing, what you're being surrounded by, or what's happening in the world at large. So Monday does feel disruptive and kind of rude, but often when these moments happen that are a little rude in tone, they get our attention. So something is getting our attention on Monday. Something feels a little messy, at least in the beginning of the day. And I want you to also know we're moving towards a moment of really beautiful clarity on Friday. So even though Monday starts off a little wobbly, and it might just be the kind of day where nothing really works out as planned, and that's okay because you're flexible. And it might be a day where things feel a little bit more explosive or combustible. And if you're kind of picking up on that, you might want to lean back or away from things that feel like they're not necessarily grounded. Or you might want to use this moment to kind of move towards a breakthrough, because there is a sense at the beginning of this week and the end of this week that there is an upgrade that can happen. And look, I don't know about you, but when I have a breakthrough, it's usually because something went in a way that got my attention so intensely because it was so uncomfortable that I'm oh, that's on me because I did or didn't do all these things. And then I ended up in this situation that was very irritating or uncomfortable or kind of shocking, but it has the potential to wake me up to something that I've been unconscious to. So Quality of time, that's the quality of Monday. It may or may not land in your own personal life. I just wouldn't expect things to go as planned on Monday. And I'd expect for there to be a little confusion at least at the beginning of the day, because we're leaving that Mercury square Neptune that happened on Sunday, the 25th of June. So moving into this week, Mercury then moves into Cancer later on Monday. And then what happens, like Tuesday, Wednesday especially, Thursday especially, and Friday, is that there's this really lovely confirmation that occurs. And the confirmation has something to do with the ways in which we've been trying to be disciplined and responsible and attentive to the things that demand our consistent work and effort and our boundaries. So we're in Cancer season. The Sun and now Mercury are in Cancer. There's a focus on family. There's a focus on what ties us together. There's a focus on tending to that tender part of us. And there's a focus on being able to express our feelings. And this part of the week, like the Tuesday still might be a little kind of rumbly from a kind of ripple effect of Monday's astrology. But, the end of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is very sensitizing astrology. But it's also showing us and telling us that the boundaries and the work that we've done are paying off, because there's a type of containment that we can really be the benefactor of. So what I'm talking about astrologically is Saturn's moved into Pisces. It moved into Pisces in March of this year. Brand new thing, brand new job for you. So go and read your Saturn in Pisces horoscope in either the Chani app or on chani.com, because it's a great refresher. And you can also listen to your reading in the Chani app for the year and listen to the reading that contains March of 2023, just to get a reminder of what Saturn and Pisces is doing for you. But in a general kind of way, there's something that feels like, okay, I've gathered some kind of work experience, or I've gathered myself in a way that I feel safe in my relationship with myself because I feel a boundary, but I also am able to experience a flow in terms of expressing care towards myself, towards other people. So there's this feeling of being able to sit by the river and watch it move. Saturn is the container, and as the Sun and Mercury move through Cancer and Saturn's in Pisces, it's like a container for water to move through. So it can be really healing, again, especially if we've implemented the boundaries that we know we've needed to set, and if we've learned how to be in integrity with our own emotional self and life and needs. And something here this week says there's something here working, right? So we want to look and see what is working in our life, what is flowing, and what's helping us to understand our own needs and feelings and sensitivities. Really honoring that part of us that is sensitive. Okay, so the Sun and then Mercury make a trine to Saturn Wednesday and Thursday. And then on Friday, two things happen. One is that Mercury and the Sun come together to make an exact conjunction. It's called a cazimi. And we get to the heart of a matter about who and how we care. So how we care for ourselves, who we care for in our life, how we care for them. It's also a great moment of clarity about how we feel about something. Now, I don't know about you, but I think most of us have been conditioned to distance ourselves from how we feel because feelings get in the way of being productive. But I highly recommend spending at least some time on Friday talking about your feelings, writing about feelings, communing with whatever your feelings are in the moment, just even taking a temperature check in a type of meditation. It doesn't even have to be like meditation exactly, but just checking in with the self and be like, how do I actually feel right now? How does my body feel? What are my emotional feelings? How's my emotional body doing? So there's that piece of it. And you might have some really great conversations with family, about family, or again, be able to have a moment of clarity in regards to what the feeling is about, right? Feelings aren't facts, but they come up for a reason, and they're connected to something that's happening in this moment, and usually that happened in our past. So I think there's a great amount of info that we can gather come Friday. And it might also be on a kind of more practical level, like you might get an aha moment or an insight about something that you're working on or wanting to do or wanting to plan. And also on Friday, Neptune stations retrograde. So it pulls focus on the principle of dreaming, of feeling. So again, it's extra touchy-feely this week. And also Neptune talks about the ideal and the kind of projected fantasy that we might want to tune into. And if we know that we are fantasizing, if we know we're in a moment of being in a fantasy world, it can be really helpful. So Friday feels really creative and it feels really insightful, but it's not necessarily logical or linear or clean cut. Water sign stuff is messy because water's not dry, It's literally the thing that makes stuff stick together and come together. It's adhesive almost, right? We think about when we want things to come together, we want them to be open and porous and, able to cling. And water creates that kind of situation, thinking of like wet paper and pages sticking together because they're wet. So a lot of stuff can kind of get a little mushy this week, but I do think that there's a lot of assistance. And again, if we lean into our boundaries, our emotional boundaries, and the work that we've done to make our dreams a reality, especially since March, there's a lot of insight and a lot of sweetness and a lot of connection that's available to us this week. Then on Saturday, the Sun and Mercury go to sextile Jupiter. And that's what I love. Saturday feels like Friday, Saturday just feel like, wow, like an insight, a blessing comes from that insight. So again, I'd say stay close to what it is you feel and stay close to the wisdom of that feeling and the wisdom of our own emotional systems. Again, not that feelings are facts, but that attuning ourselves to what they're saying and why they're coming up can grant us a great amount of wisdom. And it just feels, again, like on Saturday, the astrology of Saturday, there's something relaxed and also exciting. There's something grounded and there's something really connective. And those moments in a situation where you're with the people that you love and like nothing could be better. You don't need more than that. That's what this end of week feels like. And this part of the weekend, it feels like everything is beautiful when we know that we belong and we know who we belong to. Not that our relationships don't change and we don't change and situations don't change, but there are those moments of feeling like I'm with the best people in the world right now. These are the people that I call family, and this is such a sweet moment. So I'm just encouraging you to focus on those moments of connection and clarity and your conversation with your inner self. It's a really great week to think about how you are actively reparenting yourself and how in doing so, you're better able to be one of the people in your circles that can be a facilitator of something that feels like family. Because we got to show up as adults, right? And the only way we can do that for most of us is to learn how to reparent ourselves in the way that our parents just didn't know how to. And it's really our work to do once we become adults. So that's the focus until Sunday. Then Sunday happens and we have another moment of disruption and another moment of possibly of breakthroughs and of change and of something that wakes us up. Venus is going to make that same square to Uranus that Mars made on Monday. So again, we're feeling really bookended this week. Feels like there's something that happens at the beginning of the week and maybe something very similar at the end of the week. And Venus speaks, like the Mars square Uranus can feel a little extra feisty and like fireworks, a little combustible. And the Venus square Uranus of it all is a little bit more tender because Venus is about love and relationships and pleasure and what we value. And that's going through a shift. That's going through a change. That's going through a disruption. So again, it might be just like a day where things are a little bit bumpier than normal. But Venus is about to go on a much longer journey. In a couple of weeks, Venus is going to retrograde. So we know that we're in a Venus moment right now. And that Venus moment is going to get us to reconsider and review a lot of stuff about relationships, our ways in which we create beauty, create art, and also our values. How we can center our values, especially in our relationships and especially in the ways in which we create the art of our life. So will relationship stuff come up this week, at the end of the week? Maybe. Will you have a kind of experience where you're awakened to something that's happening in the relationship or that is happening in you that impacts the relationship? Maybe. Will there be something that is really experimental in terms of your creative process or in terms of the ways in which you seek out pleasure? Yeah, totally. I'd try new things in terms of your own way of creating beauty. And I'd also think about how I'm showing up to this relationship and how I might need to show up to this relationship in a different way. That relationship might be to myself or to somebody else, but there is something here that's saying, again, there's an update that's needed. So what is an update to the ways in which you're engaging with relationships that could be helpful to you and everybody else around you? All right, y'all. I do want to say Monday, July 3rd is a full moon in Capricorn, so we're also moving towards another big peak experience. I will say this moon in Capricorn has some really good things to it, so come back next week and we'll talk all about what that might mean for you. Just want to thank y'all again and again and again for leaving us reviews on the App Store. They mean the world to us. We read all of them. I wanted to share this one with you called The Best App, all caps, by Lani. First of all, Chani feels like my therapist at this point, always telling me what I need to hear and giving me the tools to help navigate through life. It's such a blessing. It's so personal and vulnerable, but a safe space for anyone. Thank you so much for creating this platform. Sending you lots of love, many, many blessings. Bye for now.